Hello everyone, I'm Chris, I'm CMO at Infinity Group, and welcome to the latest in the Doing It Differently series. And today I am joined by Rob and Tristan. Guys, do you want to say hello?
Hi Chris, Rob Young, CEO here at Infinity Group. Thanks for having us on.
Hi Chris, I'm Tristan, CTO at Infinity Group.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, gents. Now, the first session we're going to dive into here is all around AI agents and how we can find use cases and ultimately measure value from those use cases. So, Rob, we've been on a bit of a journey ourselves as a business. Do you want to just give a very, very high level as to what we've been up to over the last couple of years in the context of our AI transformation journey?
Sure. So, over the last 3 years, we have been on a journey where we've fully platformed on D365, and the sort of main reason for platform approach versus kind of niche provider is the fact that we want to work on one common data platform. And obviously, once we're on one common data platform, we then overlay tools like AI and building agents. It makes it a lot easier because integrations equal complexity. We started with D365 sales, moved on to Business Central. We then did project operations, followed by customer service, and then more recently field service.
And we've only sort of really in the last sort of 6 months started to open up those AI use cases, haven't we? In terms of agents.
Absolutely. I mean, this goes back to the fundamentals of AI. People come along and there's a lot of hype around AI and agents, but really, when you get down to it, you've got to sort your data out. You've got to do the cleaning, the horrible jobs that nobody really wants to do, and it's all about data. Data drives the AI engines. The more data you can give it, the more contextual data it can give it, the better outcomes you're going to get from the agents.
Absolutely. And Tristan, I guess a question for you really. So I guess at a very, very high level, we've found that across the business, we've been able to save around 180 hours per week across the organization, across multiple different departments. And when you think back to our starting point at the beginning of this transformation journey, what would you say our problem actually was, and what were we actually trying to solve for with the introduction of agents?
Yeah, good question. So, and I think this is where a lot of initiatives fail is failing to define the problem in the first place. So our problem was in a few different areas. I guess we had lots of manual processes that relied on knowledge that were in people's heads. We had lots of separate systems that either had kind of integrations that were high risk or unreliable, or we had to manually move things between systems. And we were managing lots of different vendor relationships, so paying lots of different people for lots of different things that all needed updating on their own schedules and that kind of thing. So there was a load of stuff in terms of how the enterprise architecture looked that meant there was a load of opportunity really to save time and use AI to solve problems, but had to go on the journey that Rob described first to unlock that.
Brilliant. And Rob, from your perspective, I guess moving away from the sort of technical components of that, what did you sort of see as the business leader driving us forward from a strategic perspective? What was the problem you felt we were trying to solve?
So first of all, we wanted to create an environment where we could change the customer experience within our industry. How do we change that up? How do we make that customer engagement, that customer experience so much better and so much richer? And also at the same time, make our employee experience a lot better and richer as well. And by taking our teams on that journey, they've learned a lot around transformation, not just the technical aspect, but also the human aspect of change and how to adopt and change in an ever increasing velocity that we're in now. We want to be better at the customer experience. We wanted to kind of change our industry really and how customer experience is going to be delivered, and improve that, provide customers with the data and the information that they need quickly via things like portals or Copilot or AI. We also wanted to, in tandem with that, we managed to change the employee experience and give them the tools that they can use to actually help them with the automation piece and do a lot of the mundane stuff they do, and actually get them focusing on areas that really make a difference for our clients, and really bring them on as individuals as well, and understand that whole change process and manage that change process, and overall just making the company more efficient from a management point of view and reporting point of view.
I think that's a really, really key point you've sort of pulled out there, and I think that we see it within our customer base and how people interact with us. Actually, one of the primary challenges at the moment is how can we increase efficiency with all of the sort of macroeconomic factors that are going on out there in the broader market. And I think where we've seen really, really good success is, there's some top level numbers there where actually we've been able to increase growth as a business by 35% with actually not adding any extra headcount into our roster as a business. And in many instances, bringing in that automation and that agent piece has been really, really key to that. So I guess my question to you both really is, when did we sort of realize that actually it's not purely about efficiency, but actually it's become more of a strategic differentiator for us? So I guess, Tristan, from a technical perspective, where would you land with that?
Yeah, so I think for me it's about achieving scale in a controlled way, right? So take our billing function as a good example. We know we could bill X amount with the people that we had because they had loads of work to do and processes there to do and checks there to do and all this kind of stuff. Once we'd automated that billing function, you can then bill 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times the amount without any extra bodies. So if you take that and apply that to all the different areas of the business, so you're adding control and consistency, but also massive amounts of scale. So not just adding people to get more done, saying, right, I can automate this and use agents for this, therefore I can effectively infinitely scale it, right? So that's where we started to say, okay, there's massive value here. We've still got to find out what those processes are and define how we're going to deliver them. But there's a huge potential there once you've kind of got that formula right.
Brilliant. And Rob, I think, I certainly see it, and I'm sure a lot of us throughout the business see it as well, but you're very well known within the business for banging the AI drum and helping the business drive forward from a strategic perspective using AI as a differentiator. And I'd imagine that is probably a very, very common theme throughout a lot of businesses that we deal with, in particular out in the market. I mean, is there anything that you can sort of pick out from how you are approaching things within the context of Infinity Group that you could recommend to other business leaders out there who are looking at AI transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously this is what we do. So I think another thing to add to that as well is, from a strategic point of view, us going on this journey ourselves and understanding what that journey looks like has certainly highlighted some areas that maybe you wouldn't think about initially. And things like data, obviously, security is another piece, but that whole change management, how you manage the team through the change that's coming, because you talk about AI and automation and stuff, and people naturally get quite defensive and are quite happy doing their roles, sometimes repetitive over and over again. So how you manage that message and take them on that journey and kind of get them kind of believing in the process, because ultimately what we want to do, and this is what we tell our teams, is we want them to become stronger individuals. We want their CVs to become stronger. We want them to learn and grow as people, because we know in a year, 2, 3 years time, the world's going to look very different. Our business is going to look different. All organizations are going to look very different. And actually, we also know that understanding their job role and how you can use technology, and whether that's AI or automation within that job role, actually understanding that job role and joining those two things up is probably more important than the technology itself.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, and we've certainly seen that throughout our business, as you say. And I think the the real goodness has actually been, as we've started going through our process of trying to adopt this technology, and we've sort of been going through advocacy group processes, and actually now we're at the point where our teams are actively coming forward with potential use cases and problems that could potentially be solved by agents or use of AI or intelligent automation. So Twiz, maybe a question for you actually there. How have you as CTO, much like a lot of CTOs out there, take all of that noise and excitement around, hey, I've got this idea around an agent and it solves this specific challenge. How do you go from taking that to initial idea, putting it into pilot, and then actually working out where does it go in the backlog?
Yeah, it's a good question. So lots of people ask me for lots of stuff all the time, right? So, and it's easy to think of AI as this big scary thing that could do lots of things and no one really knows what it's capable of and that kind of stuff. But the way I kind of distill it down is it's a tool in our toolbox, right? In the same way we have a CRM and an ERP and a HR solution or whatever, we've got this tool that's got a set of capabilities and we know the things it can do. So why not think about it in the same way we would think about any other thing that we're potentially going to spend money on? So we're a business, so it needs to do one or more of four things, right? It needs to make us more money, it needs to save us money, it needs to take risk out, which taking out integrations, whatever, that's all taking risk out of the business. Or it means we need to be able to do new and different things, so different products or services or better products or services. So fit, and then we call it, they're the kind of four value drivers, right? So that's how I think about it. Is it going to do one or more of those things? If it is, to what extent is it going to turn the dial on any one of those dials? And that kind of tells me then where it is prioritized. Now there's other things to think about, like how hard is it? How big a change is it? How much money is it going to cost? But really, you're assessing it like you're assessing any other kind of technology initiative. It doesn't need to be a big, scary, hard to understand thing. Just keep it simple. Is it going to do this? Do these things for me and do these things for the business? Yes or no, right? That tells me where it sits.
Brilliant. And Rob, I guess a question for you, is that business leader, CEO driving us forward. Obviously, we've got a lot of investment going into creating agents, whether that's time or monetary investment, right? As a lot of businesses will do at the moment. What sort of metrics would you be looking for to measure what good looks like from an implementation of an agent?
Yeah, so funny enough, Tristan and I were on a call last week with quite a senior Microsoft exec whose world is 2 or 3 years in the future. And he made a really, really good point, which was it's really easy now to build agents, and even code and stuff, with vibe code and stuff like that. It's really easy to build agents. It's actually really hard to build good agents, but it's even harder to build good agents that add value to the business. And so, there's some really important factors in that message. Building an agent for agent's sake, it's been, since the dawn of time when technology's been around, people have invested, millions and millions in, failed ERP projects or failed CRM projects or failed technology projects because they've started with the technology and kind of let that lead the conversation. You always have to take it back to the value for the business. As Tristan said, what are those drivers? Is it going to add value to the bottom line? Is it going to make my employee experience better? Is it going to make us go faster in a certain area? So yeah, just distilling it back to those key business principles is really important for our point of view.
So there's obviously a lot of excitement around AI agents. How can we actually start getting our people, starting to use this technology and bringing that into our processes? But I guess based off what we've just gone through there, where do we draw the line between setting our people free and loose and encouraging people getting used to the tooling and actually looking at, is there a business value off the back of it? And Tristan, probably a question for you there.
Yeah, good question. So there's a few things there, isn't there? One, you want to, as Rob said, we want to let people learn this new technology and build skills that they're going to use going forward, right? So you don't want to kind of shield people from it and say, don't experiment. If you are going to let people experiment, you want to give them a safe place to do it from a technical standpoint so they can't kind of do any damage, but you also want to put some, kind of guardrails in place in terms of how much time you're going to spend on this. Is it an extracurricular thing, or are we going to give you kind of dedicated learning time to do it? So, yes, as with anything, whether it's kind of training or personal development or whatever, we need to set out some boundaries to say this isn't an acceptable amount of time we're going to spend on this thing. What we also need to be careful of is, there's lots of tools and lots of capability that allow people to go and build lots of stuff now. There's also potentially lots of people going and doing the same thing and building the same stuff, and we're kind of seeing that in the marketplace as well. In that there's a lot of kind of young startup AI businesses that are all kind of racing towards a similar target. So when we're going through that process of collecting ideas and validating them, and we've got kind of framework for that, a big part of that is, are we reinventing the wheel here, or are we building something that's genuinely going to add value and turn the dial? So we just need to be aware that yes, it's easy to build stuff and we can build a lot of stuff, but going back to those principles of, is it going to add value? Are we building something that maybe is part of core product already, or is going to come soon? Those are all things we need to think about before we kind of rush into building lots of stuff. But yeah, we want to give people the tools to be able to go and experiment, definitely.
Absolutely. And Rob, I think it comes back to your point that you mentioned earlier. It's actually about making sure you've got that structured approach to change, and making sure that the right sort of training and development's actually there for people as well, so that they are then making the most and understand why they want to start using this tool.
Yeah, it is. And I think you start by, going back to the data piece, you start by building the foundations. And you as soon as you build the foundations, then you can start doing, you can start quickly deploying some real change and some real value for the business. And then people start to see that. And then all of a sudden, it just builds and builds and builds. And all of a sudden, then everyone's, feeling empowered to get involved and come up with ideas as we go through the process. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tristan, I guess a question for you here. So we've sort of spoken a lot around our customer zero and what our journey looks like, and actually how that's helped us actually understand the technology that fundamentally we're selling and delivering into our customers, right? And from an AI perspective, how do you think that has helped us, I guess, identify AI use cases maybe a bit earlier than a lot of folks actually are doing so at the moment in the market? And how would we go about, or how do we go about accelerating that pipeline so that we can bring things of value to the market?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think when we're thinking about kind of use cases and being in that world, obviously the landscape is moving so quickly, and the technology is changing so fast. Just being immersed in it, and like you say, getting our hands on the technology and being in that world allows us to understand what's available now, but also what's coming and that kind of thing. In terms of how it's steered our focus, I think it's massively helped us to understand the fact that you should look at the tools that you've got already. Every vendor is filling their feature set with AI stuff, so there's a good chance the thing that you're using is going to have some tooling in it. So we use a lot of the first party agents within the Dynamics 365 stack, because Microsoft are solving common problems, right, that all businesses have. So things like the payables agent for purchase invoice processing, or time and expense agents for the project teams, or sales qualification agents to manage leads. These are all problems that Microsoft are solving. So we don't need to go out and reinvent the wheel there. And that also gives us a good steer of them where actually we can add value with kind of custom agents and automation as well. So yeah, that going on that journey has definitely helped us understand where to go, kind of looking for things. So yeah, we call it kind of looking inside the box, right? Thinking inside the box. Have you got something that does that already before we go off and spend a load of time building stuff?
Yeah. Rob, anything you'd add on that point?
Really just to reaffirm what Tristan said. You kind of, you need to, at the beginning, you need to take a kind of helicopter view of what you've got in your tech stack currently, and you need to then analyze the cost of it, the importance of it, how is it delivering for the business, and you need to understand all those elements and then kind of map out what that journey might look like. And we call that enterprise architecture, but that's kind of what it is. Looking at the business needs, and then then the technology comes after. I think that's really important that you do that instead of just diving in and, as Tristan says, maybe replacing a system that actually doesn't need that replacing straight away. Making sure you get your priorities right is important, because the business needs to see progress, right? They need to be able to see wins.
Absolutely. Okay. And so I guess just to sort of wrap this up then, what would you say, Rob, from putting your CEO hat on, what would you say is the one thing that would be top of your list of recommendations for organizations or business leaders looking to go out and embark on this AI transformation journey?
Well, there's a couple of things, but I would say
we'll let you off.
I would say, firstly, take that step back before you dive into any project, and then look at everything kind of holistically. What do we want at the end of this as a business? What is it we're looking to do? Are we looking to grow? Are we looking to acquire businesses? Whatever it might be. So understand what our end goal is, and understand what tech stack you've got, because, as we said, the huge benefit of platform approach is there's less and less integration, less and less complexity within that stack, which makes it a lot easier to scale and add all the values that we're talking about in AI. Don't be blinded by these kind of AI fads and startups and stuff that come and say, "Oh, we're going to solve all your problems overnight." When it fundamentally comes down to it, there is a journey to go on, and there's a lot of hard work involved in that journey, and some of those jobs are ugly jobs, like sorting your data out, and you need to get on and do that work. So don't feel intimidated by, "Oh, we want to do all, we've got all this stuff to do," and you just won't get started. Just start with the basics. It's got to be done. Most businesses know it's got to be done. They know that over the years they've accumulated more and more data, and often a lot of it is not needed. You've got to go through that process of cleaning that, but do that in tandem with what is the big picture. Where do we want to go, and plan accordingly.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Rob. And Tristan, I guess from a CTO's perspective, what advice would you give to a CTO, and what would be the top recommendation for you?
So yeah, I think top thing for me is it's tempting to go for the best tool for every job. Right? What that means in reality is you'd end up with data in lots of different places, lots of different security stuff to manage. We've got different security setups and that kind of thing. So the value in consolidating all of that into one platform is huge, right? You take out integrations, which are a massive risk, however mature they are. You take out having to manage lots of different security environments, and you just have a single kind of security wrap around everything. All your data is in one place, and that's what really unlocks the AI capability. I can ask a question across sales, projects, service, marketing, whatever, all in a single system. So there will be times in there where you need to compromise on a little feature here or a little feature there, but that is completely worth it to get the value of that kind of AI enabling data platform. Because as we move further into the future, it's going to become less and less about those applications and those little features here and there, because you'll be using AI to interact with your data layer. So if that data is consolidated and consistent and secured, that's where all the value is. It's not in little features here and there in the kind of software layer that sits on top.
And I'll just add to that, actually, Chris. Sorry to.
That's all right.
Is in the same conversation that Tristan and I were having with the said exec at Microsoft, that's exactly what he was talking about. When you think about what consultancy businesses, organisations like us are going to look like in the future, we need to be thinking about the data and the structure. So the ERP and the CRM systems are still going to be there underlying, but we're not going to be thinking about UIs, because we're going to be interrogating and asking questions about that data using AI and Copilot, and we will be building reports and stuff from kind of natural language questions. So actually, as Tristan said, features and stuff are less and less important. The most important thing is you get into a platform where the AI can talk to all of your data in a structured way quickly without the complications of integration. and that's where we're going.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, chaps. So I think what I can surmise there is that your AI is only as good as your data, and you need to get that sorted first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, chaps. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks, Chris.